My story begins with underwear. As any distinctive TED Talk really should, my story begins with underwear, not just any old pair of underwear, but a giant honking pair of tighty-whities, a pair of underwear of epic gargantuan proportion, a pair of underwear not limited to XXL, XXL. I'm talking like 25 X's before the L big underwear. Underwear you could fly up a flagpole and stand straight across town on a clear day and see wafting in the breeze. Because underwear, gigantic underwear, to me is funny and silly. And in my years as a director of the Big Apple Circus, one thing I've come to understand is that things like fun and silliness and humor and joy and spectacle and innocence and escapism and childlike enthusiasm, this is the currency that the Big Apple Circus has been trafficking in for nearly 40 years. So I will get back to the underwear in just a few minutes because there is a fine backstory there, no pun intended. But first, I'm going to roll back the clocks to the late 70s. This is where the disco ball is supposed to descend behind me, but we'll skip that. We'll go right to 1977, which was the year that the Big Apple Circus was formed. Paul Binder and Michael Christensen, our co-founders, were professional clowns at the time, and they had a very clear and simple vision, which is they wanted to take the grand tradition and deep history of European circuses and bring it over stateside. And in Europe, the circus arts, as they are called, are often mentioned in the same breath as other fine art forms like ballet, opera, symphony. So Paul and Michael wanted to basically plant their flag stateside and see what they could do with this idea. And so they raised the bar pretty high for themselves, and here we are some 40-odd years later, and mission accomplished. Right from the get-go, they knew that they wanted to have a very intimate experience, so they created a one-ring circus under our big top. And there's not a bad seat in the house. It's an immersive environment. There are no nosebleeds. Everybody's part of the action. It's all about connectivity. And related to that, it was very clear to them that they wanted to have a self-imposed mandate, which was to take the best that they could offer from under the big top and bring it out to the communities in which we serve. And so we do that with a variety of community programs. The crown jewel of which is Clown Care, and that is the world's first and the nation's largest professional hospital clowning program. Now, I'm going to sort of take a deep dive onto that in a few minutes, but I often like to refer to our community programs as sort of a constellation of stars because it really is, what we do, to me, is functioning in a parallel universe, a wonderful ethereal galaxy that's inhabited by this constellation of stars, and they all just glimmer and twinkle. And so I'm going to hop around from star to star before I get to the one that shines and burns the brightest. So the first I want to talk to you about is called Circus After School. And we deploy our circus professionals to underserved communities, and we go to schools, and we have an after-school program, which can be in schools or community centers, and we basically teach kids who are at risk circus skills. So they learn how to juggle, they learn how to ride unicycles, they learn acrobatics, but more importantly, we're teaching them really important life lessons like responsible risk-taking and teamwork and trust and commitment. We also have a program called Circus for All, in which we give away 50,000 tickets a year for free or with steep discounts to those who are facing economic hardship or financially challenged. So really, everybody's got a fair shot at attending the circus. Staying under the big top for a second, we have a wonderful program called Circus of the Senses, which we do in a couple of markets, and we really would like to do more with it. And this is a special, customized performance of the circus that caters to the needs of children who are suffering from hearing or visual or cognitive impairments. So they can come to the circus and be like any other kid for the day. Everybody is welcome. It's a fully accepting, calm, gentle environment. If you're blind, you come to the circus and we have a program for you that's in Braille. If you're deaf, we have American Sign Language interpreters who are strategically placed in all of our aisles throughout the performance so you could follow along and you're actually able to listen to what the ringmaster is saying. But we also have a play-by-play booth. So for all those familiar with the NFL, we have our own version of John Madden and Pat Summerall. We have a live action play-by-play booth where there's a running color commentary by our co-founders of all the action that's unfolding in the ring. So the kids who have vision issues can listen along, or the kids who have hearing impairment but can hear a little bit can turn up the volume and they could follow the action. And then after the show, all the kids are invited to a special touch session in the ring. So you can go and you could pet the pony, you could stroke the dog, you could step into the wire, you could touch the trapeze. It's really just a very, very powerful program. But, of course, the underwear is going to come shortly. Hang in there with me. There is clown care. Now, clown care, as I said, is the world's first and the nation's largest professional hospital clowning program. The Big Apple Circus employs over 70 clowns. We employ more professional clowns than any organization in the United States. And we have a presence in 14 leading pediatric hospitals and facilities up and down the Eastern Seaboard and extending out to Chicago. And so what we do is we go on, well, first let me talk to you about some of the hospitals. They're best of breed. Boston Children's, of course. That's right, yeah. We're also in Sloan Kettering, and we're at Johns Hopkins, and I can go on, and the list goes on forever, but really just fine institutions. And we're so happy to be there. And our clowns are clown doctors, and what we do is we take the sort of joy and wonder that you could find from under the big top, and we bring it to the bedsides of over 220,000 hospitalized children each and every year, and we've been doing it for almost 30 years. Our clowns work in pairs, and they wear white lab coats, but outside of that, there's really nothing alike between them. They all adopt their own unique persona. They have doctor names. I'll just give you a random sampling. There's Dr. Doodle-Doo. There's Dr. Pee-Pee. There's Dr. You Don't Say. There's Dr. Doofus. There's Dr. I'm Confused. There's Dr. Gesundheit. There's Dr. EBDBD. I don't know what I don't know what EBDBD, I can't even say it. EBDBD, maybe that's the point. I don't know what that means, but that's funny. And you know what else is funny is that she's a doctor who's got a potted flower on her head with 15 posies, constituting all the colors of the rainbow before she comes into your room. So when these doctors go down the hallway of a hospital, which as we all know is not the most uplifting environment, shall we say, on a day-to-day basis, take one look and you will see a Technicolor parade on display of taffeta and ruffles and sequins and feathers and boas and glitter and bubbles everywhere you look. And the first thing they do when they get to the floor of a hospital, and we are working in pediatric AIDS units, we're working in bone marrow centers, we're working in burn centers, we're working in intensive care units. And so what they do is they go and they check in with the head nurse, and they find out what's going on the floor that day. Who's going into surgery? Who's come out of surgery? What is this child's condition? How long have they been here? What's happening in the moment? And they ingest all of that. And our clowns are also trained in hospital protocol and hygiene, so they're the real deal. And then they take all that information, and then they go room to room. And they're as comfortable, honestly, canvassing an emergency room as they are doing interactions. And we call them interactions in the rooms because these are not canned routines. Okay, we're not employing birthday clowns. I have 2 children. I love birthday clowns. I've hired birthday clowns. Our guys are not birthday clowns. These are graduates from leading arts conservatories. They are trained thespians. They are magicians, and they're musicians, and they're jugglers. You name it, they've got a multitude of skills, and they draw from every single one when they go to these rooms, and they tag team it. And the first thing they do when they go to a room is they knock on the door. Because a child has been hospitalized, they're completely disempowered for the most part, and their door is really a revolving door of medical professionals who are doing their job in good faith. So there's doctors and nurses and orderlies and technicians, and they're coming in and out, doing everything they can to keep that child healthy. But nobody's asking permission to enter. But we do. We put the power back into the child's hands, if only for a few minutes. And we knock on the door and we say, can we come in? And more often than not, the child says yes. And then we take what we call the temperature of the room. We feel it out immediately because we're not delivering, as I said, canned routines. We have all sorts of skill sets, but we want to know what's going on with the child. And then we start. And our clowns are master improvisers. And so they're able to tell very quickly as to what they're doing, if it's working or if it's not working. And if it's not working, they are going to turn on a dime, shift gears, and try something else until they make sure that before they leave that room, they've given that child back their childhood, if only for a few minutes that day. I'm going to show you a little video about what we do, which illustrates it in greater detail, and then we'll revisit this again.
Here's what I would say to another children's healthcare organization that's considering engaging with the clown care unit. You're crazy not to.
The crucial thing is that I think that that whatever program comes here, the staff has to be well trained, And the Big Apple Circus Clown Care Unit have very professionally trained staff who are able to understand the patient's needs.
We have a rigorous training process where artists are trained not only in the artistry of hospital clowning, but also in hospital procedures and protocols. Whenever we come onto a floor, we check in with the head nurse.
What you got for us?
And that head nurse gives us the general state of the floor. They may direct us to or away from specific patients for specific reasons. It's important for us to know if a child is NPO or can't eat or hasn't eaten for a while. We're not going to do food jokes.
This clowning program is very different, that the clowns are very sensitive and obviously are so professionally trained versus, you know, someone who just puts on the grease makeup and kind of walks in the door and does antics, which are cute, but these clowns I've watched are really doing interactions. They read the patient, they read the scene, and sometimes they know that the best interaction is no interaction because it gave the patient choice to be able to say no, and for that day, that's what that patient needed.
I think beyond the illness and the procedures that the child's having, sometimes it's sort of more the dynamic with the staff, and it helps to just ease stress and chill everybody out.
You know, physicians generally are serious. They don't really get to the level of the child most of the time. They're talking big words, and most children are very, very uncomfortable.
And the clowns are really important because that's from the parallel universe outside the hospital. They're part of that world that brings what's a child's world into this world here. More than once, I'll be sitting in my office dealing with whatever aggravation I have to deal with, and I'll hear the clowns coming down the hall. They usually playing the ukulele or ringing their bells and whatever.
We're walking down the hall saying, hi, y'all.
Hi, y'all.
Careful there so you don't fall. La, 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 la.
And it's just wonderful. It's like lights up my day to see a kid laughing instead of looking grim, see parents smiling instead of consumed with anxiety.
And that fun and laughter is sort of part of the whole process. It definitely eases the parents. Kids can sense right away when parents are stressed out or worried or fearful. So I think that that combined has really had an enormous impact on sort of the collaborative aspect of helping kids get better.
You'll find that children tend to open up more to the clown, so we could sit with them 20 minutes and not get information. The clown could sit with them three or four more minutes and give us information that's going to help us to better treat that child.
And in doing so, the clowns oftentimes clown with the staff and really kind of help relieve some of the stress that they might be feeling, and I think help them feel part of that patient and family experience.
Here we go. Whoosh!
We are doing some workshops now with the residents. And the clowns, I think, have really showed the residents a whole new aspect, because obviously they're learning medicine and they're very focused on numbers and drugs and, you know, which test to order and what have you. And then I think at some point they really forget some of the more social aspects, really being able to walk in and read a room and sort of know how people are feeling and their readiness.
This is one of the ways you can present yourselves as something other than just providing medicines and surgery and treatments. You can present yourselves as a really holistic, whole family engagement. And this is how you present yourselves as something other than just sterile healthcare professionals. That if you can laugh at yourself and take your work seriously at the same time, that makes you look good. And it makes you look good to your families, and they will trust you.
So, as you can see, in my humble opinion, we're in the business of moving mountains, and it's very powerful work. We're incredibly proud of it. There is a story which I'd like to share with you, which sort of punctuates what you've heard and what you've seen today. We were in a hospital where there was a young boy who was admitted, and he had a chronic cough, a really horrendous cough, not a cough which you pick up at the end of a winter, but a cough that really prevented him from breathing normally. And the only time he got any respite from that was when he was sleeping or holding his breath or drinking from a plastic cup through a straw, which he really was grappling 24/7 just to try and find some relief from this. And he was in the hospital for months. And there was a battery of tests that were performed, and to no avail. Nobody could crack this. And finally, he was moved to psychiatric. And at that point, our esteemed Dr. Chester Drawers came to visit the boy, and he knew a little bit about what his case was. And he sat down and he began to work his magic. And in no time flat, he had the boy laughing hysterically. Instead of having convulsive coughing fits, he was having fits of laughter. and he couldn't stop, and he was enjoying himself, and he lit up, and all the nurses and doctors, they gathered in the doorway, and they were peering in. They couldn't believe what they were seeing before their eyes, because it had been months of work. Now, to be honest, this was the result of an aggregate of work. Everybody, it was all hands on deck to get to this point. We were just the catalyst at the end. We were the cleaner who came in, and we opened up this child. But it was the first time that it happened. And so shortly thereafter, the child was sent home. He was discharged. And there was a meeting that occurred where all the doctors then gathered to discuss the case. There was a closure meeting. And so you had the chief of pediatric oncology, and you had the head of the psychiatric department. You had all the doctors and nurses who had treated the child, and child life people, and they invited our clown doctors, which I think speaks to the collaborative nature of this relationship, this sort of holistic treatment of the healing power of laughter in the world of medicine. And so they sat down, and first they hailed our clown doctors as heroes, and then all the doctors began trading notes, and the conversation became very technical, and they were going around the room as to what was your approach, and what did you do, and how did you feel about the results, and what were your expectations. And then they got to the end of all of this, and the chief of peds turned to Dr. Chester George, and he said, what was your process? And Dr. Chester George very nonchalantly reached behind his back, and he said, well, and he pulled out a gigantic pair of underwear, and he said, I just put these on my head. And that was it. And then the room yet again exploded in laughter, as it always does when our clown doctors are in the house. One of the wonderful things that's happened with this movement, and I call it a movement, is because, we're in 14 hospitals, as I said, but this program has grown coast to coast. There are lots of other people who have passed through, who are alumni of Big Apple Circus Clown Care, who've created their own programs in different states across the country, but in fact, it's a global movement. And you'll find clown doctors in virtually every country around the world. It's real, and it's being taken very seriously, and it started with us. One of the other things that's come out of this program is something called Vaudeville Caravan, where we're taking the same principles of clown care, and we're going into nursing homes, and we're treating the elderly, the sort of palliative care set. And we do it instead of with clown doctors, they sort of adopt these vaudeville personalities, because that's what that generation can easily identify with. So that's Vaudeville Caravan, and that program is scalable, and we're trying to expand that as we speak. So I just want to say in conclusion that the next time you see a red nose, or you hear a ukulele, or there's a kazoo, or you see a bunch of bubbles, please think of us, because those things, those are the tools of our trade. That's what you're going to find in our doctor's bag. And we stand at the ready with our prescription pads out, and we are ready to write up as many scripts as we need to spread laughter, the healing power of laughter around the world, whether you come in under our big top or you give us the privilege of coming to you. Thank you.